What is going on, guys? We are back with another video today on Madden 21, doing something a little bit differently. We're doing a franchise tips and tricks guide. Some's a little cheesy, some's a little sleazy, some is just things you might not have known that could help you out. I've been asked a lot of questions so far for Madden 21 on who should I tag, who should I give the option to, what position group should I go for, how many linemen should I re-sign, all of this kind of stuff. I'm going to go over pretty much everything I could physically think of, whether either that's something to help you out in your franchise or maybe salary cap related, trade related. Like I said, pretty much everything I could think of. If there's something that you would like to ask and I didn't go over it, let me know in the comment section below. If there's enough, we might make a part 2 of this. But if any of this helps you, maybe leave a like, maybe subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Jeromepkr. Check out the second channel, PKR Plays. Twitch.tv/Jeromepkr. Enough. But some of this, like I said, is going to be a little sleazy. Some of this you're going to already know. And maybe, if we're lucky, some you won't know at all. Now, the tip isn't that Quentin Nelson's easy to get. Because most of us already know Quentin Nelson's easy to get. The reason why I put this up, and hey, maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't know there was a superstar development, young 94 overall guard that you can get for basically a sneeze sample from the CDC. But the main reason why I traded for Quentin Nelson is because we're going to try and comparing this for one. Quentin Nelson, you can see, 24, superstar development, take my word on it. To put a comparison, a first-round pick 11, for Andrew Whitworth isn't a guaranteed trade. Andrew Whitworth, he might be superstar, but he is a 38-year-old 86 overall left tackle. The reason why that's important is the number one tip outside of Quentin Nelson's very easy to trade for, so if you have no morals, just steal him from the Colts. The Colts will draft another beastly guard. Don't worry about it. The number one tip is that guards can play tackle, and guards and centers are much easier to trade for than tackles are, by far. And you can see here, he's a 93 overall left tackle. Try to get him from the Colts as a left tackle. GG, you're not going to do it. So basically, number one goal, guards, easily switch over to tackle. A lot easier to trade for. A lot easier. Another tip is there are a lot of solid safeties in the league, and usually on average they are easy to trade for than corners. So if you're lacking corner and you don't have any decent corners, you might have a safety, or there's a safety you can trade for that can play corner. Jabril goes from an 80 overall strong safety to a 79 overall corner. Of course, here, like I said, it obviously works. Not everything's going to be a position change guide, but basically that's a guide if you really want it to be. Another guide is that basically sometimes it has to be 2 yellow interest players in a third round. Usually goes for many first round draft picks, which I know this might seem like a lot, but considering Dion Lewis is 29 and Gallman is literally, you could probably find 20 running backs in free agency right now that are just as good. Getting a first round pick for that is very cheap, so that's just a little bit of a, easy to trade guide for draft picks at least. And then for the ultimate cheese, if you really just have no morals at all and you want a guy like Lamar Jackson, as you can see here, it's not going to be very easy to trade for him, right? It's just not. Now, this one, specifically for a guy like Lamar, might be a little bit more questionable because you're going to lose the abilities when you do this. But if we change Lamar Jackson to a kicker or a punter, you'll see that he goes from impossible to trade for to they can't get rid of him sooner. Like so, 7th round pick for Lamar Jackson. You grab Lamar Jackson off of your punter squad. You put him at quarterback, and boom, he's back. And also, does he actually lose his abilities? Yeah, he must because he doesn't have escape artist. So probably do this for guys that aren't Lamar Jackson. But, you get the gist. If you really want these guys you're trying to cheese, there you go. And now here's a tip that a lot of people might not know. I got this question a ton. I should have made a single video on this alone from our Blaster in the Past series. Is to change players, maybe they'll have it in the future, hopefully they do, to change a player's abilities, you want to create, if you're a coach already, you want to go and retire, create a new player, go to change player role to a player that's in the league, go to active, choose your guy, click A, And then when you go over to their player card, their My Player here, you can change every single ability. So, of course, he has all of these abilities. I don't know what his exact abilities were, but we'll make him as close to as good as he was before, or make him better. You know, long-range Deadeye is pretty good, so we'll put long-range Deadeye on. And Jukebox is probably something people want inside Deadeye. So now, you know, you got yourself a sick Lamar Jackson again. That's how you put any ability on. Well, any ability they have unlocked on. Now, if you're doing a rebuild or you're simming a bunch of games and you don't want to play them all, the trick to getting your guys the highest stats they can for a potential dev up or just good XP, if you want your running back to be a beast, you start them at power back and third down running back. A lot of people know that, but some people don't. Some people don't even touch this. Same with wide receiver. Let's say we want Darius Slayton to be our number one guy. We would put him at the number one slot receiver position and then the number one wide receiver position. Boom, there you go. So he should be getting the most targets and the most yards. The one position that doesn't work for is tight end. If you put the tight end in at the slot receiver, it'll just make the backup tight end get more stats, so that doesn't really work, unfortunately. And then for this, I don't even want to talk about pass rush because pass rush is still just as bad. I always put my my number one pass rusher. Let's say I want Golden for some reason to be my number one guy. I'll put him at the starting spot for both. But usually that doesn't really matter because I just don't get good stats in Sim anyways. Put the DT in there as well. Same with starting linebacker. If I want Blake Martinez to be a beast, I'll put him at the number one sub spot. And of course, I'll start him at middle linebacker. A lot of people might have known that, but some people, they literally just don't touch subs. And then once again, if you're rebuilding, as for last year, I was getting a lot of success on West Coast Power Run with KC offense. Still getting a little bit of success with it. It seems like there might be a better team for it. And then, of course, defensively, I've been running Cleveland with a 4-3 base. And usually that gives me pretty damn good sim stats. And if not that, I go with the Patriots offense instead. Also, another little trick, whether you're playing, you know, you're actually doing a rebuild or you're playing all the games, if you want it, oh God, who cares? I'm going to delete this anyways. If you want it to be easier for you, turn off auto progress. I normally do this anyways. When set to on, the CPU will automatically progress your players, your team's players throughout the season. I think they took that away. That used to be a cheat code where you could turn that off and then the AIs wouldn't upgrade the players till the end of the season. But definitely turn your auto progress off if you're trying to upgrade, because obviously they're just going to start upgrading all your players for you, and you probably don't want that because a lot of times the AI will go one way. They'll make your guy's man coverage 99 and the zone 75, or only block shed guy, no pass rush, even if they're on the edge. So there's, you know, not really a tip, but just a heads up. Also, speaking of a heads up, I don't think they fixed it, but as far as salary cap, if you turn this off, you can never turn this back on. So if you're even close to salary cap, I would honestly, if you really care about your franchise, I would always make sure the one thing you look at when you're done is always make sure you didn't touch salary cap. That's a tip from last year that I would have loved to know. Not like it was me, but I would tell the league, hey, if you're turning salary cap off, it can't be turned back on. We learned that the hard way last year. Once again, this is for the ultra cheesers. If you really wanted to cheese, you can edit your draft class. I don't know why you would want to do this. Completely ruins the franchise. But once again, we have hackers out there in the gaming community, and people hack. So there's got to be some people that like to do just have the answers for everything. If you go to edit players while you're in your scouting, you can literally look at every single player when they're projected to go. You could even change their projection if you really want. You could take a look at their dev. Hell, if you wanted to, you can make all the freaking QBs X Factor, so you have yourself an X Factor QB. You can obviously do that anyways, but I don't know why you would want to do that. Small tip for maybe the super beginners. You'll have guys like these, CJ Board, and there's some people that might just auto sign or even have their auto signing on. But as you can see here, even though he is, super fast, he wants a 3-year, $10 million deal. And as far as progressing, as far as his skill level compared to the rest of the league, he is not worth anywhere near a 3-year, $10 million deal. So as far as what I do, I would not re-sign Board. I would not re-sign Ebner. I wouldn't re-sign this Downs guy. Chandler, I wouldn't re-sign. This guy, maybe you can get him on a $550K no signing bonus deal. But for the most part, I almost never sign these backup players, and I usually just go for guys in free agency, or maybe I'll even stock up for the bid war free agency. Saquon got basically the entire bulk of the carries if you compare that to the rest of the league You know, no one's carrying the ball as much as him, especially for that percentage. He has like a 3-to-1. Everyone else is pretty much a 2-to-1. Some are even like 1-to-1. You can see even the Cowboys are, 2-to-1, whereas we had basically a 3-to-1 on our backup. And as far as receiving, of course, like we said, Darius Slayton, this is a guarantee, pretty much a guaranteed dev up to superstar, even with a playoff missing season because he was placed at number 1 and slot receiver number 1. Once again, Blake's not the greatest of players, but because we have him at number 1 middle linebacker and sub, he does get 110 tackles, chance to potentially dev up. Sack totals, we did have Golden at the number 1 spot for both sides. This one's just kind of a fluke, though. Sack numbers are just terrible. I don't think there's anything to kicking and punting, so I'm just not even going to mention anything about that. The Ravens still make the freaking Super Bowl without Lamar, and they almost win the thing. But like we said, you can see here, Slayton, he was the lowest wide receiver on the list, but because of where we placed him, he had the best season, and he goes up to superstar development. Blake didn't because he's still just trash anyways, but that's beside the point. We're moving on to another one of our tips, and this one could save you in the salary cap long term. It's offering bare minimum. Now, if it's a player you really want, if you really want Kareem Hunt, offer him the deal. However, you can sometimes get away with a bare minimum deal, which usually you could probably use to fill up your backup spot. But sometimes you can get away with guys like Kareem Hunt. 30 points, it's low, right? But we're going to offer a bunch of low players, and when we're done, I'll show you that every single contract is minimum, and then we'll see how many, if any, we get. Of course, this is kind of a hit or miss, but you're almost guaranteed to at least get a few. And of course, long-term deals on minimum are basically super cheese. This is a tip that I usually like to do for, if I'm ever going to do it, I'd like to do it for a fullback, because I don't want to pay a fullback a lot anyways, and usually they don't mind because they're not getting paid that much in the long run. Like you see here, 35 points is the highest of all the guys we offered. Is for these guys, go for a young guy. If you're trying to go for backups, you might not even start, but you just want to have decent guys in case your starters go down, or you just want that depth that looks good. All right, so as you can see here, every single player we have offered is a minimum deal. We offered probably 25, 30 players there. And as you can see, 88 overall, Kareem Hunt has accepted, same with Solomon Thomas, on a minimum deal. That was a 5-year deal for Kareem Hunt. You now have a top-tier skill position running back making $3 million over a span of 5 seasons, which obviously opens up the roster quite a bit, believe it or not. As far as scouting, there's not a whole lot to scouting. If you knew how to scout before, you know how to scout now. The thing is, with this year's game, there is a lot more randomness with hiddens. So if you guys want to see a proper guide, let me know. Really, the main thing you're looking for is the green, which of course is right here. You can see Chip Thomas, green. Combine grade looks good. His combine itself looks great. One of the tips I would say is that centers this season seem to be the most juiced for positions. Almost seems to always be at least 2 really solid linemen at the center position. This one seems to be at least 3. And overall, I mean, there's not much I could really say. As far as wide receiver goes, you probably want to go with the guys at the better 40 time. You can see 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle. That means his agility and or excel is going to suck. Whereas if you go with a guy like Demetrius Childers, who obviously his skills are insane anyways, he's a super steal. But if his skills weren't super insane, you got that 40-yard, the 3-cone, and the 20-yard shuttle to work with. So let's say he has normal dev or his ratings aren't that great. At least the tough stats, like the athletic stats, are already done. Basically, anything in the 7-point plus for wide receiver is usually a steal, but no guarantees. But like I said, if you guys want to see a proper scouting guide, let me know in the comment section below. And you can see here we did advance, and of course there are going to be a lot of rejections. You're going to see at least probably 50-60% rejections. Rejection there. But then you see here a 26-year-old star development wide receiver, Pascal, Anthony Brown, 26-year-old PJ Hall, Mosley. You get usually the guys that are younger guys or big position guys, or there's just not a lot of depth in free agency. That's the ones you're probably not going to win. But I mean, you can still see here, we're getting more acceptances here. We got a kicker for 7 years. You get Will Lutz, the kicker, for 7 years on a minimum deal. And we've got about a 35% acceptance rate here. Now, the tip on this one is that if you have the first overall pick, you would not believe the amount of stuff you can turn that into. See, now there wasn't a crazy amount of depth on this team, but if you had another guy that was like an orange interest, you could easily turn pick 1 and the orange interest into 3 first-round picks. We traded pick 1, 75 next, and a 6th this year for pick 2, 1 pick behind us, pick 10 next year projected, and 24. What the hell happened here? Thank you. You get the gist. Super easy to do. And we get to pick 2. So unless you have like a 4-4-2 quarterback at number 1, I just would not take it. I would always trade down to number 2. And you could have probably done this for even cheaper, maybe like a 3rd or a 4th next, but we kind of ran out. Or maybe a yellow interest player. Pick 2 and 43 next for pick 4 and 6. And those are both this season. And then I think right when you get around probably the end of the top 5, that's when these picks do kind of drop value, and it's very hard to turn them into anything else. But as you can see here, if you're willing to move completely out of pick 1 down to like 15 or so, pick 4 for 15 and a first round next year. So let's say you're done trading down. To recap what we gained from pick number 1, we added pick 6, 15, and 28 this year, plus 3 first-round picks the next year. Now, I think we probably lost a 3rd this and next and a 2nd or so. But obviously, you know, with first-round picks, you can easily regain that by trading down anyway. So we basically turn the first overall pick into 5 extra first-round picks, and we still have pick 5. We still have pick 5. So this little portion is never draft someone at 1 unless, once again, it's like a QB who's, 4.42 speed or 4.5 speed, something really fast, ridiculous. Never take a guy number 1 at the very minimum. Maybe you don't have to cheese it all the way as far as we did. At the very minimum, trade to number 2. There's a good chance your guy might still even be there. And now a lot of you guys probably knew this, but some of you guys don't know. If you go to free agency right after the draft, you hit right trigger and you go to practice squad eligible and you go by youth, you'll see the rookie players that were undrafted. Now, it's not a guarantee by any means. However, there has been a lot of hidden that I have seen in free agency right after a draft. Now, like, once again, are we going to find one? I have no idea. Special teamers, O-line are probably your best bet, maybe running backs. But even if you don't find a guy that's hidden, you're like, damn, shucks, that's unfortunate. Didn't find a guy. You could still find gems. And, this guy is one of them. Andrew Leonard, 70 overall rookie. Didn't cost you a dime. Well, whatever, 1.85 mil. Didn't cost you a single draft pick. He's 21. He's a slot receiver at 5'8", 92 speed, 90 excel, 93 agility, 78 jumping, pretty much mid-70s, high 70s for catching. Route running's pretty solid. Injuries not bad for 90. Change direction solid. This is a guy that you could probably see someone legitimately drafting in like the mid-second, late second round. And of course, he's a free player for you to take. Same with some of these other guys. And once again, is a good chance you will find a hidden. Pretty much once out of every 2 drafts, there'll be at least one guy. Usually kicker, punter, maybe O-line or running back. But check them all if you really got the time. And just in general, look for those guys with the great athletic stats that you can definitely work on. It's impossible not to know this because of all the overpowered trade videos you've probably seen on YouTube, especially from us. But we're going to trade a 5th round pick to Kiki QT. Well, not to Kiki QT. To the Texans for Kiki QT. We changed the man, the 74 overall, to running back, and now you have yourselves a 80 overall running back. Of course, not the fastest guy in the world, but if you get a really fast guy, he'll instantly become the fastest running back. As you can see, you look at rosters by speed, the fastest running back in the league is Matthew Breida, 96 speed, 93 excel, 95 speed for Mostert, 94 excel. Simply put like that. What the hell? Who the hell are these guys? Rookies, I guess. But if you look at wide receiver now, there is a lot of guys in the 97, 96 range. So tons of wide receivers you can turn into running backs that would instantly become some of the fastest in the league. Simple stuff, but maybe if you're lacking at running back, you can get a wide receiver put in there. Of course, you're going to have to pay attention to that carrying rating a little bit, but some of the established wide receivers will have decent carrying. Now for contracts, there is a, if Lamar Jackson wasn't traded to us, he would have a rookie fifth-year option. The thing about fifth-year options is there's only a select few positions that I would ever even think about using it on. That would be a pass rusher that was probably Superstar or X Factor, 88 plus overall, or QB. Lamar Jackson, you can see here, 6-year, $224 million deal, which can obviously, it could get higher, don't get me wrong, but right now you're seeing a $33 million cap hit, which is actually, it's actually pretty fair, but the ultimate cheese for guys like Lamar, guys like Quentin Nelson, specifically linemen, and wide receivers that are in the 90s who might ask for 20 mil. Basically, if it's a non-QB asking for 15 plus mil, the best thing you could possibly do is to franchise tag them at the end of the season. Of course, you only get one player to do that for. But you can see here, Quentin Nelson, he's asking for just about, what is that, 18 mil a year probably? Like a 5-year 88 mil is probably, let's take a look. 17.6 mil per season. And if you look at Lamar Jackson's contract, he's asking for 37 mil per season. We are going to end negotiations, so I'm going to write this down. You can see here Quentin Nelson, his contract has dropped a little bit, but a 1-year, $12.4 million deal. And the biggest thing is you're only guaranteeing him $6.2 million deal, $6.2 million. So for whatever reason you want to trade him or whatever, you can. Whereas the other contract locks you in for 5 years guaranteed. And then for Lamar, not as much of a saving, but 35.4 mil, saving 2 mil. And once again, the big thing is you're not paying that 127 mil signing bonus. You never know. Maybe your draft class has a late second round projected QB. You draft him, he's an X factor, and now that guy's basically out the door because you signed a Lamar to a long-term deal. Of course, Lamar is probably not a great talking point because you should almost never want to replace him. But if you did, you basically have to get rid of that QB because he's, his contract's going to be up the same time Lamar's is, and you can't get rid of Lamar because of the contract. So basically, if you're immoral and you don't care about players' feelings because there's no holding out in Madden yet, franchise tag for guys like QB, interior linemen typically, and then big name wide receivers, guys that are in the 90s. If they're asking for 20, 25 mil at wide receiver, you can usually tag them for about 16 to 17. The biggest thing about that is the tag can also be a good signing thing, whereas, a guy that's 30 at wide receiver, when they're really good, they usually want to be signed till 35, and it'll be like a 100 mil deal or whatever. This way, you can tag them for a year, tag them for 2 more years, 3 more years, whatever it may be. But as far as the video goes, that's pretty much it from me. If there's anything you think I missed, let me know. Those are all the cheese, the tips, all the stuff I know pretty much for franchise that some people might not know, or just little behind-the-scenes stuff that might be able to keep that dollar standing a little longer, or to extend the draft, get you more picks, whatever it may be. Like I said, if this helped you at all, leave a like and subscribe. If it didn't, hey, dislike if you want. It's up to you. Like I said, if there's any you think I forgot, let me know in the comment section below. Also, let me know what kind of videos you like to see in the future. Like I said, I'm probably going to do a top 10 superstar players to trade for. If there's any other ideas, maybe like a top 10 rookies to, I don't know, something, let me know. Regardless, hope you guys come back for next video, which will be one a little bit later. But until next video,